All right, guys. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of grammar we have to cover in this last stage, stage 35. So we're going to be talking today about indirect statements. I'm going to do a little bit of a review of infinitives because infinitives are a big part of indirect statements. We're going to talk about, we've seen indirect things before. We've talked about indirect commands, we've talked about indirect questions, and indirect statements are going to be similar. Remember, anything that's indirect, like an indirect question, is a question that's being reported to a third party. Someone that wasn't at a conversation and couldn't have a question directly asked to them would instead have a question reported to them. So we talked about, instead of asking the question, where are you going? If the person that you want to ask that to isn't there, you might tell somebody to go ask them. And so they might say, the teacher wants to know where you are going. Okay? And same with commands. If you want to give a command to somebody that isn't directly there, you would tell somebody else to report that command. Like the teacher tells you to leave. All right? That is an indirect command. Indirect statements are just normal, regular statements, sentences that are being reported. So in many ways, at least thinking about it, they're actually a little bit easier. So the first thing we got to do is we got to review infinitives. All right. Remember, infinitives are pretty much the unconjugated form of a verb. What does that mean? It means it's a verb before we slap our endings on it, right? Like usually if a verb ends in O, I am doing it. If a verb ends in S, you are doing it. T, he, she, it, that sort of thing. But verbs that have an RE are kind of the untouched version of the verb. So we've talked about that usually we translate them in the present active as to blank. As you can see here, they all end in RE. This is how we sort verbs into different families, right? Like we call everything that ends in ARE first conjugation, ERE with a long mark second conjugation, ERE and IRE third and fourth conjugations. And these are often used to form different verbs, like when we're writing in Latin, if you're forming the imperfect, you usually will go to the infinitive, take off the RE, add your BA. So it's very useful to know that for when you're writing or forming verbs yourself. We often form them from the infinitive. And also they are used in Latin as complementary verbs. So verbs like can and want usually need another verb, like I want to go to the store. The verb to go would be an infinitive, all right? Or I am able to go. I can go to the store, all right? All those, we use the infinitive to help those verbs out. So last chapter, and again, because of, the world falling apart, we weren't really able to go over this very much, but if you have your notes from last chapter, we did talk about passive infinitives and the fact that passive infinitives are present passive infinitives, instead of ending in RE, end in RI, and they're used just normally as passives would be. We have a verb of being in there when we translate it. So instead of to love, when we add an I on the end of amari, it means to be loved. And it's used in all the exact same capacities as a normal infinitive, or not normal, an active infinitive. So it can be used as a complementary verb with a verb of wanting or being able to, something like that. So hopefully if you need your notes on it, here they are. So again, first conjugation as the present active, and we're going to get more tenses of these infinitives. Obviously not this year, but next year you'll get some more tenses of these. So we go from ARE to ARI in the passive, or ERE in the active goes to ERI in the passive, and then third, because it's awful, it goes from ERE to I. Yeah. No, it's not. I guess they didn't want you to confuse second and third conjugation. I don't know. And then fourth, IRE. Oh, caught it live. Goes to IRI. Okay, so those are the charts you'll need to know as far as our verbs are concerned. So an indirect statement. All right, an indirect statement is any time an idea or statement is reported to a third party. All right. Again, similar to indirect commands, indirect questions. Whenever just a normal sentence written by some author or told by somebody is reported to another person, that makes it an indirect statement. All right. So often rumors and hearsay, those are indirect statements. For example, I heard that Johnny will ask me to the prom. That is an indirect statement. You weren't there with Johnny when he said, I'm going to take her to the prom. You heard it from somebody else. So that means it's kind of like, obviously not directly told to you. The direct statement would be, Johnny will ask me to prom. But she didn't overhear that. She wasn't there. It was reported to her. All right. So again, a direct statement is a report of the exact words used by a speaker or writer. Any normal sentence we run across so far with a subject, verb, direct object has been a direct statement. Here's a direct statement. You all know. This one goes out to you, Marinos. I hate TikTok. That's a direct statement. An indirect statement, again, if that's being reported to somebody, you heard that I hate TikTok. I didn't tell you, but you heard it from somebody else. All right. And if you notice, this has a pretty similar look as indirect statements because there are going to be three pretty distinct components. With indirect questions, we had a verb of the head, a question word, and a subjunctive. These are going to have three components. They're going to be a little bit different, but they're also going to be kind of similar. So just like with indirect questions, we are going to need a verb of the head. Some verb of mental activity, thinking, saying, telling, wondering, feeling, anything like that. Where it gets different, though, is you're going to have an accusative come right after your verb of the head. And that accusative is actually the subject of the statement being reported. So this is where things get a little bit tricky. You're going to see an accusative, and it is going to be the subject of the statement. It's weird. Usually, again, accusatives are the direct objects. And then at the end, instead of having a normal verb, you're going to have an infinitive. And really what this is telling you is, hey, listen, this is not the main verb, all right? It's not the main verb, as we see down here. To audiwit me TikTok. I didn't know how to put TikTok into the accusative. Audire. Audiwit, that's our main verb. Odire here is our infinitive. It's not the main verb. So that's why the form looks a little bit different. So if you look at this, all right, this is our indirect statement. To audiwit me TikTok odire. Audiwit, that's our verb of the head. Means to hear. It's a mental activity. May is the accusative of ego. Usually when you say I, we use ego. Here in the accusative, it's may. And then our verb to hate is in the infinitive. So when I translate this out, you heard that I hate TikTok. All right? I translate this may as a subject, and odire is translated like a normal present tense verb. I did not translate this to hear. I said, you heard that I hate TikTok. That's important. All right. And this is different from a direct statement. If I just wanted to tell you I hate TikTok, I would say ego, TikTok, audio. Again, I don't know how to put TikTok into the accusative, so I just kept it the same. All right. So the tricky parts I just talked about. Indirect statements, infinitives are translated as normal present tense verbs. That's the hard part. A lot of you are going to want to put translate the infinitives as to blank because that's what you've been doing for a long time. But in an indirect statement, that's not how they go. Like, think of how weird this would sound if we translated this sentence as to hate. You heard I too hate TikTok. It's not going to work. So you need to translate it like a normal verb. That's going to be difficult. So in this example, filius patrum dicebat puellum eum amare. The translation is, the son was telling his father that the girl loves him. Again, loves is being translated like a normal present tense verb. All right? The other tricky part of this is that there are going to be multiple accusatives in a sentence now. It's just going to be what there is. So how you can tell which is the subject of the indirect statement is you're going to look for the accusative that comes directly after your verb of the head. So here we have filius patrum dicebat puellum eum amare. Same sentences up here. All right. The only difference is puellum here. That is the subject of your statement because it comes after dicebat, your verb of the head. So puellum is the subject of the indirect statement. The son was telling the father, the girl loves him. Okay? Again, it's kind of inverting a lot of the stuff we've already learned, which is why this is tricky, but they're actually pretty easy to spot. If you ever see a verb of the head and then you see an infinitive at the end, you know you're probably dealing with an indirect statement. So here's what I'm going to have you do. Let me move my head. All right. Here's what I want you to do. We have these 4 sentences here. I want you to just to go through, and you're going to be doing this on an Ed puzzle. I want you to go through, and I want you to just identify, say circle here, you can just type in, what are the 3 parts of the indirect statement in each of these 4 sentences. So I want you to find me the verb of the head, the accusative that is the subject of the statement, and the infinitive for each one of these. All right, hopefully that won't be too bad. Again, catch me at office hours if you need any help on this. All right, till next time.